Many years ago, a couple decades actually, I had seen a house I wanted to buy. It was in a major metropolitan area. The house itself was pretty well junked out, but it was in a hot area, one that I thought was going to come back and really increase in value. So I made an offer on this house. It was listed, the seller had it listed with a real estate broker who called me after I submitted the offer. And he said, the seller's going to hold your offer because there's another person interested in it and he wants to look at both offers at the same time before he either accepts one or makes a counter offer on one. And that won't happen until tomorrow. The other offer's being put together, but we won't have it in hand till tomorrow morning. And so we hung up, and my first thought was, well, that's fair. The seller wants to be able to have both offers in hand before he makes a decision. Then the thought occurred to me, fair to whom? And who gets to set the rules? I'm negotiating for the purchase of a house, and I'm being told that I need to sit and wait while the seller may use my offer for leverage on another offer coming in behind me. At this point I called the other broker back and I said, I appreciate your seller's position, but I'm advancing the deadline on my offer till noon today, which I knew was not enough time to get the other offer in hand. I said if I don't have a decision by noon, my offer is withdrawn, and I followed that up with an email. So I ended up buying the house, which may or may not have been a good decision. I did make some money on it down the road, and I had a lot of fun with it. But the point is this. When you're negotiating, what comes to mind when you hear that word? Most people think of negotiating as haggling, butting heads with somebody and getting somebody to give up something that you want, and whoever butts heads hardest wins. That may be a crude form of negotiating, but negotiating is actually the art of getting more of what you want and hopefully giving your opposition something to walk away with that they want. Comparing negotiating to haggling is the equivalent of comparing a political cartoon to a masterpiece of art by, say, a Rembrandt or a Da Vinci. Most people, and here's why this video is important, most people either consider negotiating to be haggling and headbutting, or they don't realize at all when they're in a position where they're negotiating. I want to talk a little bit about certain principles to apply, where if you learn these principles and apply them in your daily life, you're going to win way more often than you lose, and you're going to have fun doing it. So let's talk about negotiating. And I'm going to list a few principles. There's probably 100 principles and tactics of negotiation, but there's about 6 or 7 that are really key. And if you get in the habit of just understanding these and practicing them a little bit, your life is going to improve. You're going to get more of what you want, and your relationships with other people are likely to improve as well. So, what's involved in negotiating? And I'm just going to list a couple principles up front. First of all, prepare the battlefield. Secondly, treat the person you're negotiating with as a human being and a person, not an object to be defeated. Decide in advance what you're willing to give up to get what you want, and ideally write it down. Next, aim higher and do better. In other words, always ask for a little bit more than what you expect to get. The next one is possibly the most important of all, and it's called acceptance time. People are resistant to new ideas, so as you're introducing something that they're not prepared for or hadn't considered or don't want to give up, introduce it softly and give them time to settle into the notion. Don't put them in a defensive position. Next, control the setting, the agenda, and the rules. And finally, look for hidden motives. Very often, when we're negotiating with somebody, we make assumptions about what they want. For example, in a house purchase, people tend to assume it's all about price. Price is normally important. It's normally one of the most important things, if not the most important things. But very often there's hidden motives that need to be probed for a little bit. For example, the seller may be going through a divorce and not want that known because it gives away negotiating leverage. There may be a health issue. There may be a timing issue where they want to maintain occupancy of their home until school is out, and so their children don't have to shift in mid-school. All these things can be taken into account when you're negotiating, but not unless you poke around and try and uncover them. So let's talk a little bit about these principles and look at how to possibly put some of them into practice to get more of what you want. Since this video is designed primarily for young people, I want to put it in the context of maybe an everyday experience for a younger person. Let's say that your friend is having a party next weekend and you want to stay overnight for the party. You haven't been getting along with your parents and they don't trust you to stay out overnight to be where you say you're going to be, and they're concerned about that. How are you going to go about negotiating your way through that so that you get their permission not only to stay overnight, but where they ideally feel good about it? Preparing the battlefield. First of all, if it's Monday and you want to stay overnight Friday, would it make sense to you to make sure your bed's made, your room's clean, and you may be doing a couple extra chores around the house? Would it make sense to maintain a cheerful, respectful attitude during the week, whether you feel like it or not? This is preparing the battlefield prior to asking for what you want. How about controlling the setting and the agenda and the timing? Is the right time to ask after they've had a long day at work, they're exhausted and they're in a grumpy mood? Or might you want to talk to them over the breakfast table when they're getting ready to face the day, they're well rested, and they're in a better frame of mind? These are things you can key in on and key off of. How about acceptance time? People are resistant to new ideas. When I'm confronted with something unexpected, my first impulse is to put my hands up and push back. If you put the person you're negotiating with in that position, two things happen. First of all, they put their hands up and resist. Once they do that publicly, they've staked out a position and now they're going to fight to defend it. In other words, they're going to dig in their heels. If you're looking to stay out overnight Friday night, you may want to softly introduce that concept a few days ahead of time. You might mention so-and-so's having a party, but I'm not sure if I want to go yet or not. Just introduce the idea and let it sink in for a while before you lead up to asking for their permission. Does this make sense so far? Okay. What are your parents' hidden agendas or motives? Are they not trusting you? Are they just being little dictators or tyrants when they say no to you? Or do they have some concerns that you can address? They may be afraid of who you're associating with. They may be afraid that you're going to go somewhere else, get in a car wreck, and not come home. What are the things you can do then to assure them, to uncover these hidden fears and motives, and then assure them that you're going to act responsibly? Aim higher, do better. If you want to stay out Friday night, what would happen if you said, well, it's a weekend party and I won't be home till Sunday morning? Is there any chance then that they might be willing to compromise and let you stay out Friday night as long as you're home Saturday, which is what you intended anyway? Why not ask for a little bit more than what you expect to get? I always do that in the course of negotiations. One of the most important, if not the most important, principles is to treat people as people, not as objects. Take a little time to either build a relationship or to enhance an existing relationship. And you don't have to spend a lot of time at it, but treat people with respect, personalize the discussion a little bit, find areas of common interest, and spend a little bit of time chatting before you introduce the business. If you practice these things and get into the habit of doing them, you're going to win, and you're going to win for a couple of reasons. The main reason you're going to win is because most people don't realize when they're in a negotiation. If you're treating these situations as a negotiation and the other people doesn't even know they're in the game, the chances are you're going to come out on top because you're going to think your way through it and have everything positioned in your favor. The second thing is most people that do think of negotiation think of haggling. If you get in the habit of taking a little bit of time to build a relationship or enhance a relationship, you're going to move from a situation of competitiveness where I get something at your expense to a situation of collaboration where you're both trying to come away feeling that you've won. And you can do that. All this takes is a little bit of planning and forethought and a little bit of discipline and a little bit of practice. So I hope this helps. I hope you'll think about it and put it into practice. You could have a lot of fun in the process of getting a little bit more of what you want. And thanks for watching.